Hello everyone, and welcome to my tutorial video for the Battleship Shredder drone that is based on the 2012 film. I've had a few people ask. It is based on that. This is just a tutorial video on how I went about making the drone. So obviously it will be commentated by myself, and I'll go through it step by step on how I built it. Anyway, without further ado, here we go. So here we start with the first step in the process. I'm just making a basic circle here. You'll see in a moment. Well, actually, if you look carefully, you can see that the circles in LittleBigPlanet, they're not perfectly circular. They do have sort of edges to them. So first and foremost, I'm actually just showing here how you can make a bit of a more perfect circle. There's a little trick. You just kind of copy and paste and sort of twirl it around over itself a few times, and then as you can see there, I'll just make a cutout, and it just smooths it out even more because this will be important for the next step. And then I just simply go on to change it to a piece of hologram, turn it down so you can turn the brightness down so you can see what's next. Okay, so next up we have a rotator placed in the middle of the hologram. That can be a bit of a pain within itself, trying to get it in the dead centre of the circle. But a little trial and error, and you will get there. Yeah, you can see that for the model of the shredder, I've chosen the paperclip decoration. Pretty much the whole of what you see of the model is the paperclip decoration. I find that to be a little bit of an art form within itself in LittleBigPlanet. Using decorations instead of materials, you can get some pretty dynamic shapes going with that. This is actually an example of what not to do. You can see the message pop up there. In the next section I'll show you what I did. Okay, so moving on, I've reset the scenario. Here you can see that I set the angle snap to just a few degrees and put it into front view. So yeah, anybody that's played LittleBigPlanet for, well, any amount of time really in create mode will know that you can only put a certain amount of stickers or decorations on a material at any one time. But here you can see that I'm kind of just sort of copying and pasting, and I didn't actually check to see, but I'm not sure if you can actually do that in a limited amount of times, or if it does eventually pop up with the message. But here you can see that the decorations are a lot more evenly distributed and a lot more uniform, symmetrical, you know. So the beauty of this is, you know, it looks accurate. It's a lot more reliable than what I was just trying to do. So for anybody wondering how I did actually line up the spokes, you can see there, that's pretty much the gist of it, how it's done. Okay, so moving on again, I'm just giving an example here of how it will look when it spins round. This was, well, it was to show you guys, but it was also for me just to see if they were all evenly distributed and you know, had indeed found the centre of the circle. You can see here that I used a thin piece just with the I used exactly the same technique, but I just used a thin piece and placed the decoration on it for some kind of like cutting blade edge. Again, it's quite remarkable what you can actually do with just one decoration in LittleBigPlanet. It's if you've got the imagination for it, you can pretty much build anything really that you put your mind to. There's usually a decoration for it. Yeah, you can see that I've made a couple of the spokes here, and I'm just kind of getting the basic layout of how I want it to look. Eventually, a bit later on in the video, you'll see it start to take shape more and more. But yeah, that's kind of an example of how it'll look when it spins. So you can see the basic outline starting to take shape now. I've made a couple of thick spokes, a couple of thin spokes with the blades on, and here I'm just setting up a few followers to follow that tag there. And this is one tip on how you can keep things in line, especially when working with circles. It's easy to, you know, have them slightly off of kilter, so if you can have them following a tag, it's all the better. Next up, we've got basically all of the spokes that I used in the final design. I think I did move them around a little bit more just to finalise. I think I added a few more spokes actually, but yeah, this is the basic bare bones of what the shredder is. And you can see I'm just lining them up again there, so it'll take shape and you can see. So one tip I can give everybody that I learned pretty early on in LittleBigPlanet, especially LittleBigPlanet 2, is to test out what you want your object to look like, to what the animations will eventually look like. And you can see here I put a few rotators on. The spokes are still following that tag, so you get a basic look at what's going on there. And here I'm just adding a few sort of effects. It's basically just some hologram, red and orange hologram set to follow. It's that block there, that hovering block that you can see. That's what's got the tag on at the moment. And yeah, here I'm just sort of finalising a few of the designs on how I want the individual spokes to look. And yeah, it just gives that effect of if you've ever watched the film Battleship 2012, you can see kind of like these weird red lights that are in the middle of the shredder drone. So I wanted to replicate that, and one of the simplest ways you can do it is just some hologram that's lit up in the colours that you want. Again, holograms, one of the most simple but effective materials in LittleBigPlanet. It's probably my favourite material to work with. You can just do so many things with so little, and if your eyes will just move over to the thermometer over there, you can see that it barely takes up any heat as well. So it's a win-win really. But here we are. I'm just trying to finalise a couple of the spokes. Yeah, there's just a few clips here of me sort of messing about with the spokes and making sure that everything's in line. Still, yeah, there you go. So when it all comes together, that's basically it. There's the model. So yeah, next up I've just lined up all of the spokes, and I've actually glued a few pieces together here. So it becomes less complicated. The less moving parts you've got, the better really, because you can keep track of it a little bit better. So what are we doing here now? So you've yeah, this is really the heart of the shredder. This is the only physical part on the shredder. There's actually an invisible piece of metal right in the middle, right at the heart of the shredder. So you can see the thicker central spoke there, the one with it's actually got a thick piece. When I was showing at the beginning of the video the original setup, how I got the paper clips centralised, that will be the heart of the shredder. So I'm just lining them up there, ready to glue together. Again, using the same technique of following a tag. That way, so when I made the first central spoke, I just copied that a bunch of times, so I know that the followers in the center of that one piece of hologram, and you know that they're all going to line up then. So it's just a copy and paste effort, and then changing what the decorations look like. So yeah, so next up, I'm basically naming the tag as the main spoke. So for this particular design, everything around the shredder is built around the center. So you've got that piece of metal now that's in the middle of the main spoke, and everything else will follow the main spoke from now on, instead of that piece of cardboard. I might have later on in the video, I can't remember if I put the tag back on it at any point for whatever reason. I probably did, but at the moment I'm just setting them up to follow the spoke in the middle. So yeah, it's just another way of keeping everything in line. Basically, it's the whole idea and the whole philosophy I have when I'm building anything is to try and keep it as simple as possible and keep track of things. So some people like to label their microchips, some people like to colour their microchips. In this particular build, I did actually do both of those things. So you know, it was just easier for people that might watch this tutorial to follow. But yeah, so here we have all of the spokes now set to follow that central spoke, and there you can see everything's in line. I just test it a couple of times, move it around. So yeah, here we have an example of what I was just talking about. I've actually color coded a couple of those tags, those microchips now, and named them. So you've got the central spoke, you've got the inner spokes, and the outer spokes now. So I'm just giving it a quick test here, dropping the shredder down just to see how it looks, and you can see there that they're actually lagging behind slightly. That's a consequence of them not being stuck together, but there is a workaround for that. So next up, we start to move into something a little bit more fun, and this is the first part of the animation for the central spoke and how it will look. I was watching this back and I realised that I actually messed this up a little bit here. So that sequencer there it will be in a moment set to positional. All that means is that as soon as you touch the left stick, it's very sensitive if it's set to positional, and if you just set a battery, basically you set the sequencer as small as it can go and place a battery on there. So no matter how hard you touch that left stick, it will always pick up a signal. So the idea for that is that I wanted the shredder to activate as soon as you touch that left stick. So it's kind of the same thing for the advanced rotator just underneath that. It's as soon as you hop into the shredder, it's active. So that's the little central symbol there in the controlinator's hooked up to that. So yeah, the idea is there you can see that I'm messing around with a gyroscope and a NOT gate. So the idea is I wanted to animate it so that when the shredder moved, when you stop, it kind of like gradually rolls backwards into an upright position. I just think it looks quite neat as an animation. It's just a little. It just makes it look a little bit more natural than. So for example, if I'd set that gyroscope to be too harsh, and it snaps back into place really quickly, it looks kind of unnatural. But if it rolls back into place, it looks more organic, you know, even though it is a machine. But you'll see eventually as the video goes on what I'm talking about. I also do that with the other spokes as well. Copy the same kind of idea, and yeah, you can just see there how it lines up a bit. You see once I've finished pressing on the stick how it lines up slowly. Yeah, so for this next part you can see that I'm just trying to figure out how to do the same thing with the other spokes. I don't know what I was thinking here. I was trying to do. I think the idea I had was I was trying to do some sort of timed build up with the other spokes. So you get the main one that starts to spin first, and then the others spin up as well. I do actually go on to ditch this idea, and they all move at the same time. But the rate in which they spin is actually slightly different because of, believe it or not, the size of the circle does make a bit of a difference, and also one of I think it's the inner spokes, so the two thick spokes that are on that are right next to the main spoke, they spin the opposite way round. So yeah, I do actually go on to ditch the idea of having the two timers there and just hook it up the same way that I hooked the first one. So yeah, here in a moment you'll actually see a demonstration of how they look when they spin. And bear in mind again, with that sequencer set to positional, I'm literally just very, very lightly pushing on the left stick here. So you can, well, I'm pushing down on it quite hard here, but you can see the idea. I'm having a bit of trouble with those inner spokes at the moment. I just have to do a few tweaks here and there to. You see how it's snapping back like that. That's not what I want. I want a more sort of natural animation, as in the spokes, when you let go of the left stick, I want them to gradually rotate back into place, like the main spoke and the smaller outer spokes do. Eventually I do get there, but I had a bit of trouble for some reason. It's probably because there's quite a few pieces of hologram stuck together there, so I'm not sure. I mean, hologram has no weight to it, but yeah, it might just be because of the size of the piece of hologram that I'm working with in that particular moment. But yeah, so yes, so here we can see again what it will look like now, but now that I've dropped it onto the ground. But you can see how it's coming out of line there. Now, originally I didn't want any of the pieces to be attached, but I actually forgot about this problem. Even though the followers are set to, you know, the maximum speed, they still lag behind a little bit. So I did eventually go on to rectify this, but this is more of an animations test anyway, just to see how the spokes look when they're moving around. But yeah, eventually I'll go on to show the solution for this. Okay, so next up we have the solution for the lagging behind of the other spokes. So I decided to ditch the followers and use motor bolts in place of that. There's 4 bolts in total. They're all set to have no strength. They're just literally there as an anchor point. They anchor the whole thing together. So there's 4 bolts. Starting with the background, I put a motor bolt on the main central spoke, and that attaches to the inner spoke, but in the background. And then the inner spoke has a motor bolt on it attaching to the farmost outer spoke. And then in the foreground, you've got a motor bolt on the outer spoke, the small one that you can see in front. That attaches to the inner spoke, and then the inner spoke has a motor bolt attaching to the middle spoke. I know that's a bit confusing, but basically there's 4 bolts. They kind of just bolt everything together. The rotators do all of the work. The bolts are just purely there for an anchor point. So, like I say, it's one way of getting around the problem of the lagging behind when you're using a follower. Okay, so here we just have a quick clip of what it looks like when you turn the motor bolts invisible. So this is practically the final design of the shredder. The whole model is there now. Yeah. From here on out, it's purely effects, sound effects, and logic. But that is the bare bones of how I went about making the model. So rotators do the work, motor bolts anchor it together, and then anything from this point is just sound effects and logic, to put it quite simply. So unfortunately, from this point onwards, I'd actually lost all of the footage of me sort of building the logic systems. I think I might have deleted them, thinking that they were useless footage or something along the editing process somewhere. I can't quite remember, but I'm just going to give a quick basic rundown of some of the features on the shredder. So you can see there that red chip is actually the one for the main central spoke. That's the brains of the shredder. These are just to represent the outer 4 outer spokes. So you've got the ones in yellow there are the very outer ones, the smallest ones, and those in orange are actually the inner spokes. But I'm just demonstrating here how when you use the shredder, when you move the shredder backwards and forwards, it uses the advanced rotator. It's a little bit hard to see there. But when you use the shredding effect, that also has a rotator as well that spins, but that only spins one way. You can see that there on that on those little outer chips that are sticking out slightly. You can see that they spin, but the middle one doesn't spin. That only spins when you move the shredder. So for the cutting effect, I only animated the outer spokes. That was just a choice out of taste, basically. That wasn't anything else. Just my choice. Okay, so next up we're just going to have a quick look at the logic system I did for the jumping animation. So you'll notice that there's a big sequencer there with a few batteries on and some movers. That is the bare bones inner workings of how that works. So here I'm just demonstrating that I used the X button in a AND piece of logic and a an impact sensor. So it'll only work if the shredder is touching the ground, basically, and that's due to the impact sensor. So you can press X in while you're in the shredder, but if you're in the air, it won't jump. It needs to be touching the ground. So yes, I'm just demonstrating here that you can see a bunch of the movers are to force the shredder up really quickly, and then the same thing forcing the shredder down. So I wanted the effect to be really, really sudden, and I wanted a slam effect on the ground as well. And just moving on to the emitter here, I'll place this in a second and you can see. Yeah, so what's happening there is it's just a piece of hologram that instantly destroys. It's quite a big piece, but it adds like a ground and slam effect along with the animation. You can see there exactly where it activates. So again, quite simple, quite basic, but yeah, that's how that works. Okay, so the next part, this is where people get quite confused on what's happening here. So I'm actually going to demonstrate what the cutting effect actually is within the shredder. It's very, very simple. It's just that microchip that you can see there sticking up with a NOT gate on it. The microchip is actually hooked up to the L2 button. So you can switch, you can have things active in a microchip, but you can just switch the actual microchip off. Sometimes it saves on putting more and more logic into a system that you don't need unnecessarily. So that is always switched it on, but it's limited to when you press the button. So all it is a bomb set to destroy itself really fast. So it almost instantaneously. So when the bomb spawns, it's destroyed instantly, and that gives the effect that it's actually slicing through. But there is a trick to it. You have to bear in mind that the central piece of the shredder is solid, so it's a solid piece of metal. So the way to get around that is to spawn the bomb a little bit behind the shredder, behind that first layer. Yeah, you can see here I'm just taking the chip, and you see how quickly the bomb is spawning in because of the microchip hooked up to the NOT gate. The NOT gate is hooked up to itself. When you do that, I don't know if it was intentional or if it's a glitch, but basically it's one of the fastest moving on-off switches that you can have in the game. So you just hook it up to itself, and yeah, you can see here that it's a bomb that's very, very, very tiny. It has a sound effect on it set to 0, so you can't actually hear the bomb explode either. So it's just another trick. Okay, so next up we have the braking system. So you'll see here that I'm hovering over the speed sensor and the impact sensor. So again, it's another one of those. It's a little bit of trickery. The impact sensor is there so that it'll only work when it's touching the ground again. So the speed sensor tracks how fast the shredder is moving from left to right. When you tap, I've used the R1 button to hook it up with, but yeah, I'm just demonstrating there that that chip there with the impact sensor is actually turned off at the moment, and it'll only turn on when you are holding onto the R1 button and the impact sensor is touching the ground. So as soon as you slow down, the speed sensor then turns its signal off. So it all happens in a split second, and you can see there the what's it called, the gravity sensor. That's set to a very, very high rate of deceleration, basically. So it's just a split second, and it forces the shredder to stop. So I'm just demonstrating here, when you combine all of these things, how it looks. So after this, I'll move on to showing what the effects are, basically. So it's very simple. Once you've got the basic animations down, it's just a few lighting effects and a few bits of fire. Those sparks there is actually a very simple way I made that work. So yeah, just before I show that, I just wanted to remind people of what it looks like when it all comes together. Yeah, you can see how it brightens up even more there. There's just basically more added lights that switch on as soon as you hold onto the button that makes the shredder cut things. So next up you can see that I've separated the shredder into three sections. That bottom block there is actually where the sparks are held. They're on a couple of different decoration mounts. Obviously when I move left to right in the shredder and you're going at full speed, you'll see the sparks activate. So you just have to hook the decoration mounts up to left and right and light the appropriate one up for left and for right. It's quite simple. And they are set to follow the main spoke, just like the outer spokes were when I first started the project. So the reason that these are mounted onto pieces of hologram and they follow the shredder is because I didn't want too many pieces stuck onto the shredder, and it's the same with the controlinator. You don't have to be right on point following the shredder when it comes to effects, or whatever project you might be working on at the time. But yeah, as long as they're sort of in the general vicinity of the shredder, it doesn't really matter too much. But yeah, I was just demonstrating there what they look like when you take them out of the logic. So when you hop in, it's just a few light effects hooked up to a bit of logic. Same as with the spark there, you just have to kind of tweak it here and there. And that fire effect that lights up there, that's just set to a timer. And the pieces of hologram that are within the shredder's spokes, they just set on fire after a while, and then the timer cools down if you stop moving. So there you have it, guys. That is the basic bare bones of how I made the shredder. I do regret not having the full footage, but I've done the best that I can with what I could do. But I just wanted to say thank you for joining me for this tutorial. I hope you enjoyed it, and yeah, I might go on to make another project with the shredder. We'll see. But if you enjoyed this, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and I can't wait to move on to the next project.